Good Wednesday evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Scotty Powell here with the Carolinas Weather Group, and we welcome you to a fantastic show tonight as we're talking about two of my favorite things ever in the world, sports and weather, and just how important the weather is and how it affects the sports world. Tonight we have Stuart Williams, who is the meteorologist for the PGA Tour, as well as Brian Niendorf, who is the unofficial NASCAR weatherman. And he's going to talk to us about how that came about with him and his love of NASCAR and forecasting weather for it. I also have Daniel Crawley. You guys know Daniel. He's our regular member, but he also is involved with a lot of sports up in McDowell County with Little League baseball and football, high school football. So interesting to see how the smaller divisions in sports takes into consideration the weather as well. So we'll talk about that. Looking forward to it. As always, this is a live broadcast. We have several ways that you can shoot us some questions that we can ask our guests. Find us on Twitter. You can shoot them our way, or Facebook. We also have a question and answer tab on the YouTube page that you can submit answers or questions, and we'll give you answers. And then as well, if you're listening to this later on the replay, or you can download it on the podcast just in your favorite app store. So with that, I don't know if you can hear it behind me, but I have a thunderstorm that's developed right over my house, so you may hear the occasional clap of thunder and some heavy rain on the roof. But besides that, we're good here in the foothills of North Carolina. Daniel, just to my west, he had a little bit of an exciting day yesterday with potential, or not a potential, it was a microburst. And Daniel, I'll let you talk a little bit about that before we go into the show.
Yeah, actually, the event occurred on Monday. We had quite a bit of thunderstorm activity across McDowell County on Monday, and one of them produced a microburst about 7:30 or so Monday evening, had winds close to 80 miles per hour. Of course, you, Scotty, and the folks from the National Weather Service came up to McDowell County and looked at it just to see what you saw, and it was determined it was a microburst. And that kind of has started a 10-day run here for the first part of June. It's been real active and had a lot of rain across the area, but so it looks like it's going to start drying out and heating up as we head into the weekend and next week.
It does, Daniel. And before I turn it over to Ricky, you last week it was just crazy. You picked up, what was it, almost 2 inches of rain in like a couple of hours there in McDowell County?
Yeah, we had one storm that dropped off of roughly off of Mount Mitchell, and it dropped down into western McDowell County, and probably the western third of the county got between a quarter to a half inch, but there was a narrow area in the Pleasant Gardens community where I live, probably 4 miles wide, 2 and like 2 1/4 inches was the height of it. And once it dropped south a couple miles, it just died out. So that's it seems like that's summertime for you around this part of the country. When you get on the eastern slopes of Blue Ridge, you'll get storms to form and anchor themselves, and just get some weird things to happen sometimes.
Yeah, you are definitely winning the rain jackpot there. And Ricky Matthews, you were busy as well up in the Tri-Cities. You guys have had a few rounds of some strong and severe storms as well.
Yeah, we were in the first marginal risk and then slight risk on Monday from the Storm Prediction Center, and with that we had our typical round of afternoon thunderstorms that came rolling through right during our newscast, actually around 5:30 to like 7 o'clock, and a few trees down, a little bit of damage, and really not too much overall, some trees, no structural damage, but for the most part, that was just our excitement for Monday. And I'm going to go switch my mic, so I'll let it come back to you real quick, Scott.
All right, that's okay. Yeah, it's a little staticky there. And I'm going to introduce our first guest. Brian is actually doing TV. He is out in Twin Falls, Idaho, so he's doing the 6 p.m. coverage out there, and he'll join us as soon as the news broadcast is over with. But we have Stuart Williams with us tonight. He is the meteorologist for the PGA Tour. And Stuart, you're actually a Carolina boy.
Yeah, I grew up in Winston-Salem. I live in High Point now, and yeah, I went to UNC Asheville. That's where I got my meteorology degree, and I'm older than you guys, so I graduated college back in 1992, so got a few years on me.
Well, Stuart, we're very happy that you are joining us tonight. I know it's been a busy schedule for you, so we appreciate you taking a little time out to join us tonight. And with that, I think Ricky's back, so I'm going to toss it over to him.
All right. I forgot to plug in my external mic. I use an external mic for a little bit better audio quality, and it should sound better now, I hope. But anyway. Alrighty. Well, as Scotty mentioned, we have Stuart and Brian joining us tonight. I've known Brian for a few years now, but Stuart we've never formally met, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and kind of tell everybody what you do on the PGA Tour, just so we have a little bit of background before we jump in.
Yeah, well, I'm actually contracted with the PGA Tour, so I work for a company called Schneider Electric, and we provide 5 meteorologists to the PGA Tour, and then we have separate contracts with with the PGA of America to do the PGA Championships and the Ryder Cups, and we do the LPGA, and then we do other outdoor events as well, Dublin Irish Festival, the Indiana State Fair, and among other things. So we stay busy. It's a 12-month-a-year job. I mean, golf goes all year round now, so basically I'll work 2-3 weeks in a row and then get a couple weeks off. So my schedule, I'll work 27, 28 tournaments during the year. So, and then the good part is I don't have to go to the office, and I'm off the other week. So you got me on an off week. So I'm at home in North Carolina, and I was in Texas the last few weeks, and obviously they've had the flooding rains and the severe thunderstorms. So it was a fun couple weeks there, and very tiring though. But other than that, get the background out of the way. On the PGA Tour and any outdoor event, outdoor sport, it doesn't have to be a sport. It could be a concert or whatever. Lightning obviously is the #1 concern, and that's where we play a huge role, keeping the players or just the fans and the spectators safe.
And so are you actually on site for all these events, or is it remote?
No, it's always on site. It's better on site because, as you guys know, you can forecast the weather anywhere from any city or state from anywhere in the world. But being there, I can see exactly what the clouds are doing. I can feel what the atmosphere is doing, and being there on site, seeing what those clouds are doing tells you a lot, and it really helps. And plus, we carry an electric field mill with us that measures the electrical charge in the atmosphere, so it gives us a warning before lightning is going to happen at the golf course. So, using that with radar and the National Lightning Detection Network, all of those things, we can give a really good idea and tell the officials that, hey, the storm's going to hit at this time.
Gotcha.
Tell them when it's dangerous, and then they usually make the decision to stop play. So based on what we tell the officials, they usually, they heed our warnings and pull everybody off.
And you had mentioned the electric field device. I had heard at one time PGA Tour has its own radar that travels with them as well. Is that?
No, never have. Never have. It's too, you guys seen the Doppler on wheels. It's too big and bulky, and it's too expensive to operate and to move around. So, everything we do, we carry 2 laptop computers with us. We do set up that electric field mill, and then, with using GR level 3 and having the National Lightning Detection Network and all the in-house models and stuff that we produce at work, along with all the NOAA, the GFS and everything else. We do everything from the laptop and produce our own forecast, and it works very well.
Really similar to an impact forecast maybe the Weather Service does. So when you guys publish a forecast, though, for say the PGA Tour, what information are you giving them? Are you giving them, say, the typical information everybody would want? Are you giving them hour-by-hour stuff? How much it's going to impact this type of event, this type of event, etc.?
It's a good question, because golf goes from dark to dark, basically. We start at 7 in the morning and usually get done about 7 o'clock at night, so it's all day long. So, in our typed-up forecast, we'll just break the days down into 4s. And, hold on a second, guys.
We're a pet-friendly show.
The dog's attacking something. Anyway, we type up a forecast that has, we break down hours. We'll do like 9, noon, 2 and 6, something like that, and just kind of break the day down. But the big thing that we do, that we provide, weather plays a huge role in how the golf course is set up. So if it's going to be a windy day, the officials want to know that. So if it's a strong wind in a player's face at a certain hole, they'll move those tee blocks up so the hole plays shorter. If it's a strong wind from behind them, they'll move the tee blocks back so the hole plays longer. If we're expecting a rainy day, stratiform rain is going to rain all day long, then they'll pick a high spot on the green to put the hole, because that's going to be the last place to puddle, and that keeps us playing longer. So all those little things go into the golf tournament and setting up of the golf course. So weather plays a big role in that. So it doesn't have to be bad weather to have an impact, but it does play a role in how it's set up and how things are done during the day. So winds are huge. Obviously, fog affects us. You can't see that little white ball down the fairway, so we don't play when it's foggy. And so until it lifts, you can't play. So those little impacts mean a lot. So, but like I said, lightning is the #1 concern.
Yeah. To a certain extent, your forecast almost have an impact on how well a player could score or how bad they could do.
Yeah, I mean it plays a big role. I mean those caddies and the players really want to know what the winds are going to be for that day. So there is a forecast at the tee box, so they can look at it and see what the winds are at certain points of the day, and then that helps them strategize and club selection and all that stuff. So it definitely plays a big role.
That's very interesting that it's provided to the teams ahead of time, because we'll get into this with Brian in a minute. But for NASCAR, to my knowledge, they don't have an actual forecast package that is sent to the teams or anything. They don't have any on-site weather support. So everyone's kind of on a different playing field, but for the PGA, almost everybody's on a level playing field because they get the same forecast, same information.
That's right. Well, we put that forecast in there's a player page that it gets uploaded into, so if the player's online checking things, it's in there. It's, like I said, on the tee boxes, in the locker rooms, it's in the media center, so the media can see what we put out as a forecast. But, golf is an individual sport, so, it's not a advantage to anybody when it's out there in public. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I just gave it to one player and nobody else got it, then you're talking a disadvantage. But since it's out there for public view, everybody can see it. There's no secrets. Players can ask me, hey, what the winds are today before they tee off. So it's all public knowledge. So it works out really well.
Stuart,
it's nice to know that. Scotty.
Oh no, that's fine. I was just going to ask how throughout the round, let's say a player tees off at 2 o'clock in the day, is he in your ear, or are they sending you text messages or like that throughout the day to see how the weather forecast? Maybe it's a day that a cold front's moving through, so maybe in the afternoon the winds pick up or die down. Are the players constantly, or the caddies constantly asking for information, or is that just something that you provide at the beginning of the day and then it's kind of a hang back and just watch radar?
It's provided. I mean, it's provided. We provide it a couple times a day. We'll do one in the morning and then we update it in the afternoon. But for the most part, it's on the tee, like I said. So that's where they see it mostly. But if they see me before their round, they'll certainly ask the questions. Should I take the umbrella? What time do you think it's going to start? That kind of thing. So they do ask the questions when they see me.
Let's talk about from a fan safety standpoint. When thunderstorms are approaching, what's your typical workflow? What information do you give to PGA officials, and then who gives the information to the next higher up, maybe at the golf course, and finally, who makes the decision of when to stop play and clear the greens?
Well, I have a radio that I communicate with the rules officials. Those are the guys that are in charge of the competition. And so there is a tournament director on the PGA Tour, and his name is either Slugger White or Mark Russell or Steve Carman. Those three guys are the ones that make the ultimate decision. So if I do see storms, let's say 30 miles away, and they're moving 15 miles an hour towards the course, so we have a couple hours before it gets there, I do tell them on the radio, hey guys, we do have storms 30 miles out moving in our direction. And as it gets closer, I keep updating them on the radio. And then when we feel like we need to start making decisions, then one of those tournament directors will come in, and then I can show them exactly what's happening on the screens, where the lightning is, when I think it's going to get there, and then as it slowly gets closer to us, then we'll make the decision to stop play, and he's the one that makes that final decision. So that's how it works in hierarchy. TV has one of our radios, so if it's going to impact TV, they're listening, so they know. And they obviously will call on the radio, how long do you think it's going to last, so they can kind of plan their productions and that kind of thing. So, it works very well. And then also for the spectators, obviously they can't hear our conversation. So, the PGA Tour carries LED boards, so there's scoreboards all over the course. And we put weather warning signs up. So, we have different levels of signs that go up depending on how far away the storm is and when we think it's going to get there. So, we have one that says inclement weather approaching, that kind of thing. And then, as it gets closer, we'll blow horns. Horns signal to the player that it's a dangerous situation. We're stopping, and at that time, the weather warning signs go out to say, dangerous weather. Please seek shelter immediately. And hopefully, when we blow the horn, though, we're giving at least 20 or 30 minutes before that storm's going to hit. So at least the spectators have enough time to hopefully get back to the buses and hopefully back to their car, because not everybody can get in the clubhouse where it's safe. And then obviously on golf courses there's bunches of tents and sky boxes and those kind of things, and those aren't the best places either to be during a thunderstorm. So, we do our best. At least on the PGA Tour, everybody sees a warning sign, and they know at least they've been warned. So if they want to sit under the tree, at least we warned them. So that's how it usually works.
Yes, Stuart, and I can talk a little bit about experience from that. I normally go to the Wells Fargo Championship, and there's been several times, the weather, the horns have sounded, and I guess the scariest thing for you and tournament officials is you have 35,000 some people at a tournament, like the case was in Charlotte, and you only have 30 or 40 Greyhound buses or tour buses there to ship everybody back to the parking areas. You still have that wait period, and I guess the scariest thing is those people waiting to get on the buses, and they're normally out in an open area. So that's critical, I guess, to get that information out as soon as you see a storm on the horizon.
Yeah, we try to give them as much warning as we can, and hopefully the operations people, like at the Wells Fargo, hopefully when we tell them we got weather coming, they're talking to their bus people to get more buses there to get them out. But sometimes in the summertime, pop-up storm pops up right next to you. You may only have 20 minutes. It's not a perfect scenario, but you can only warn, as soon as it's possible to warn them. So 15, 20 minutes may be all we get. So, we just do the best we can.
There's something else I want to ask you. I know you talked about you have a device there on site that helps you with lightning, but with the new GR Earth update, they've actually got these lightning probabilities within the next 30 minutes. Have you experimented any with that, with the data?
I haven't looked at it that much. I know what you're talking about. I know there's different companies doing different things with that probability and all that. But, the thing about it is, as you know, a thunderstorm, especially you get a pulse storm that pops up 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it'll produce a couple lightning bolts and it dies off and it's done. So using probabilities, it makes it a little more difficult if you just based it on that. So, we're more of using mileage and time, and, if lightning gets inside of 10 miles, we're stopping regardless. If there's a storm 15 miles away but it's moving, to our north and not going to bother us, then, we'll let it slide on by. So, we have different parameters depending on the situation. Obviously, if we're going to have severe weather with tornado-type weather or damaging winds, we have stopped play 2 hours ahead of time, knowing that we're going to have that kind of afternoon. And people thought we were crazy that we stopped 2 hours ahead of time because there's still blue sky, but then they've realized, an hour and a half later or 2 hours when the storms do hit, oh my God, they were terrible. So, we do have different parameters depending on the situation.
It's interesting with that, Ricky. I would like to get your comment on that as well. I've watching about that lightning stuff from the GR Earth update. I've seen where it's lightning in a 22 or 21% chance, and then I've seen where it said 56% no lightning at all. So I know it's got a lot of tweaking to do, but have you noticed that same thing up in your area, Ricky?
Yeah, there's some storms, that it just seems like it does better on, some storms where it doesn't do as well on. It's just like you mentioned, kind of a trial by error thing potentially. I would be afraid to use it operationally at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like to just pop it up there and watch it and see, how likely it is to happen. But maybe it's something going in the right direction. I don't know. Like you said, we'll have to keep on just watching it and see how it goes into the future.
I know that NOAA's coming out with a new satellite next year, GOES-R. And that's supposed to have lightning mapping in that's supposed to see it from the sky instead of on the ground, and it's supposed to catch 100% of the lightning strikes instead of our ground network now that misses some of them, especially the cloud to cloud. So hopefully, like you said, with technology in the future coming up, there's definitely more products out there that I'm sure over the next couple of years should be interesting to see how much better it does get because I think we're only scratching the surface at this point.
Most definitely.
You-
Go ahead, Ricky.
I would say you mentioned those pop-up storms, though, and it intrigues me of how you guys handle those. You mentioned when lightning's within 10 miles, everything's stopped. What about that situation where it's, just one thunderstorm that pops up and it's only a few lightning bolts and it's dead? Do you just take it safe and cancel everything?
No, we don't cancel. I mean, we suspend play, so we'll stop for 15, 20 minutes and let the storm go by, or, because, we're not out there to get anybody hurt. We want to keep everybody safe. So if lightning is close by, I mean, we're going to stop regardless, even if it's 1 bolt or 25 or 30 or a severe thunderstorm. So, if the potential's there, we'll stop. We err on the side of safety. We may stop 15, 20 minutes, like I said, and then go right back out and play. So, as long as we don't get damage on the golf course or very heavy rain that floods the course, then if it's just a little bit of lightning, we'll stop for a few minutes and then we'll head back out and play again.
How much do you think, over the past, ever since golf was invented and started being played, the weather being an impact on it and people who have been struck and killed by lightning on the golf course played into PGA having such a strict safety policy? Because it's honestly, as you describe it, one of the best I think I've ever heard for a sporting event.
Well, I mean, I hope I played a huge role in that because I've been doing this for over 20 years. And when I first started, Crooked Stick and all that, they had somebody get struck in the parking lots and got killed. And so that was back in the early 90s. And so ever since then, the PGA Tour has had a meteorologist on site full time. So, as far as golf goes, golf I think has been one of the leaders as far as keeping players and spectators safe. I know back before I started, they would call a TV station or local weather service or the fire department down the street, anybody that could help them give information, but it wasn't always good information. And so, we take the pressure off of the officials because now they don't have to worry about, am I making the right decision or not? And I think that's where a lot of sports need to look at what golf has done and kind of see what they do and go by those parameters because, there's a lot of times, people get hurt and killed because the decision wasn't made fast enough, or there's a hierarchy and nobody wants to make the decision, and that happens in a lot of areas. Like I know, like you said, baseball, minor league, not even minor league. How about high schools? High school, kids in the weekend playing in their little leagues. The referee's the one that stops, or the umpire's the one that stops the play, and those are the guys that usually are not informed enough to make the decision to stop, and that's when you get people killed. So, like I said, there is a lot of technology out there now, like you guys, apps. There's a lot of stuff out there, so it does help, I think, but still having that meteorologist give you the answer that, hey, I think it's dangerous, really takes the pressure off the decision makers.
And Daniel, you have a lot of experience when it comes down to the high school and little league level for baseball. How do you guys approach stuff like this?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff we do here locally, and we're always keeping track on the weather. And I think more it's for high school because we try to, when it comes to Little League, we try to go ahead and plan in advance. We don't have as many problems, say, on the game site. But in high school, and it's not always lightning or whatever, but we start talking about heat, and we start talking about football season. Heat is always a big issue in the safety of athletes that are out on the field. And, we'll be getting into that here not too long from now. Once the summer's done, we'll start football season on August 1st. But it's stuff like heat, and our certified athletic trainers that are on campus, they're always keeping track of stuff like that. And even with the lightning and stuff, they're keeping track of what's going on as far as that goes. I want to show you something right quick on the screen share. It's a chart that the North Carolina High School Athletic Association puts out. And can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. This is a physical exercise chart that they put out, and this is what they use for football. This first WBGT index is basically like a wet bulb temperature, and then you've got a heat index temperature. And if you look here on the chart, they start at like 80 degrees and then work their way up. And then when the temperature gets to that level, there's certain guidelines like unlimited activity. You can go 30 minutes before having a rest break, 5-minute water break. That's like at 80 degrees. You keep going up, of course, that time between the water breaks gets shorter and shorter, and then once you get up well up into the hundreds, and I know a lot of school systems will go ahead and just use common sense and will restrict some athletic teams from doing practice, but there is guidelines that at the high school level, at the public school level, that they all use, and it's stuff like that coaches and athletic directors and athletic trainers, they constantly keep an eye on, because it's always about the safety of the kids, especially when it comes down to safe football.
I like to add to that, because you touched on something with the wet bulb temperature and everything. On the Schneider Electric, where the company I work for, we have online products, our Weather Century Online, and a lot of high schools and colleges buy our system for the lightning and the radar. But one thing we do have on there, since Daniel touched on it, when you click on our forecast, we do have the wet bulb temperatures on there, globe temperatures. So when the trainers and everybody who's doing the practices and the and the games, they can keep track of what that temperature is, and he had the perfect chart there that outlined it. Hey, this is what you do at this temperature, and this is what you need to do on this temperature. So it's definitely a bigger business now that people are beginning to be more aware of the heat safety factors of the heat out there. Because I know on the PGA Tour, when I first started, all the caddies had to wear long pants, and they had these big, thick canvas bibs on that had the tournament logo on it. And they had a policy back in the day that if the temperature went over 100 degrees, they didn't have to wear the bibs to keep them cooler. But now the tour allows the caddies to wear shorts, and these bibs are real thin material, so they breathe a lot more. So, heat is a big deal out there.
It is, and there's one thing, and unfortunately, I think some of it's been a result of some heat-related deaths that we've had maybe over the past decade or so. It seems like it happens a lot here in the South. But, old school people, they like the old two-a-days during the football season, and they like to get your teams ready. Here in the state of North Carolina, they've really cut out two-a-days, for example, during the football season. You can do 2 practice sessions, but one can be full pads for 2 hours in the morning. If you do an afternoon session, it's no pads and basically shorts and a shirt and basically a walkthrough. So it's really over time, things have really changed in that mindset, like you said, with the golfers and wearing certain clothing when it comes to high school athletics and football and other sports. There's been a real, change of mind in how to approach things like that.
That's good, because heat is a major factor in outdoor events, and especially in the summertime. As you know, with the 90s coming and all that, people really need to watch their bodies and pay attention to themselves, because you can get a heat stroke real quick, and it jumps on you fast.
Scotty and Stuart as well, you mentioned heat, and how much does the PGA plan ahead for that? Do they have, I've never been to a PGA golf game, so I can't comment too well on this, but like water stations around the greens?
Yeah, I mean, every tee has a water cooler or ice with, ice chest with drinks in it for the players and the caddies, so hydrating them is not the problem. Most of the time now it's the spectators and the fans that are out there who get out there and start walking and don't drink enough water, and then those are the ones that usually succumb to the heat and have the heat issue. So it's mainly the spectators, because those players and caddies, man, if water runs out on a hole, you'll hear about it instantly, and those volunteers will go fill it back up, because definitely they know to keep hydrated when they're out there.
How were the plans developed? When this whole thing started with you and having a meteorologist on site many years ago, do they come to you and say, hey, we want to make a weather plan and get a meteorological input on it?
No, how it happened was I interned at WXI Channel 12 in Winston, and the meteorologist there at the time was Mike McClellan, and I interned with him, and he came up with the idea of having a meteorologist at a golf tournament. So At the time, it was the Crosby Celebrity Tournament that was played in Clemens out at Bermuda Run, and they said, "Hey, we want you to do weather out here." And he said, "Okay, I'll come do live shots." No, 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 no. We want you to help us out with the weather. So he was lucky enough to have his own Doppler radar at the station, and he piped a feed out through a TV. And that very first tournament that week, we had a thunderstorm, and we told them, "Hey, the storm's going to hit at a certain time." And it worked really well based on just archaic data at that point as far as a radar on a TV. And then that following year, he decided we need to do this more for golf. So we did a few more tournaments. We ended up doing the Greater Greensboro Open and the Vantage Championship, which were local at the time. And then from there, it kind of snowballed. Tournaments start talking into each other. And next thing you know, we're doing 12 tournaments. And then the next year, we're doing 25 tournaments. And then that third year, after traveling a lot more than I thought I was going to be doing, the tour came up to us in 1995 and said, "Hey, we want to do this at all of our events. We need you guys at all the events." So that's when we signed a contract in 1995 to provide a meteorologist at every PGA Tour event. So it's worked out well. Champions Tour, Web.com, and then obviously after that we added, LPGA and the PGA of America and other events. So it's really grown into a big business, and I think the future of meteorology is going to be more and more meteorologists on site at more and more events, because that's definitely where it's going.
I completely agree with that, because we've done event support for the City of Charlotte Emergency Management before at our college level. They had students, myself and a few others from the University of North Carolina Charlotte, do Speed Street and some of their the Panthers games for emergency management and provide weather support for them. But my question is, as we're mentioning college and you're mentioning the future of meteorology, how can people maybe get into something like this? Because as I've tried to convey to our students back at UNCC, there's a wide selection of meteorology jobs. Now, jobs like yours may be hard to come by. Being on the PGA Tour, there's probably only one or two people who get that opportunity. But, how do people get into maybe private sector jobs or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right about my job. Like I said, all the guys that I work with, I mean, I've been doing over 20 years, and Willis, who's just behind me, has been doing it for 19, and then the other guys have been doing it for 10 or 12. So, obviously you got to be at the right place at the right time to get a job with us, because, we're just not going to leave. I mean, we love what we do, and we're just not going anywhere at the moment. But there is a lot of private sector jobs out there that might not be sports, though, because we have a 24/7 weather office in Minneapolis. We do aviation weather and DOT weather and agricultural weather, energy, you name it. We do pretty much everything that weather has to offer. So there are jobs there. So you may just have to start in one that maybe you're not that thrilled with, but then kind of work your way up. I know as we keep adding events in our company, we'll pull from the office and train those whoever next in line is up and start sending them on the road. So, there are opportunities. They're just, like you guys know, when I started college, meteorology degree, there wasn't that many schools that offered it. Now there's so many schools offering it, and it's been glamorized so much with storm stories and storm chasers and all these things you see on TV with reality TV. It's really flooded the market. So I think any college graduate, I think the best thing to do is not only get your meteorology degree, but get that computer degree as well, because I think the future is all the computer modeling, and somebody's got to write that code to make those computer models, and I think that's where the money is too. So I think if you could do both, then that's a good direction to go in as well.
I agree. No dig to Brian and I in the broadcast sector, but it seems like most people who graduate college nowadays are thinking two sides, either weather service or broadcast, and I wish I could convey to people so much just how many private sector jobs there are out there.
Oh,
may not be as easy to find, but there's a ton of them out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're one of the largest in North America as far as weather companies go, private sector. But you know, there's other companies out there that do a lot of the same stuff that we do. It's just a matter of finding them. There's a lot of small ones out there that do just local forecast. But basically, I think with